and it's spoken as one of the deadly sins. It's called slothfulness. Good morning, welcome. Thank you for joining me this morning. All our family members across the world, you are a blessing to our hearts. Thank you for always supporting. Always, we feel your support and your prayer spiritually, and I want to thank God for you everywhere, all the time. In the last couple of weeks, we've been sharing some very powerful information with you. And for obvious reasons, our channel was not open, and whatever we posted, they refused to put it on. So, I just wanted to remind you, we use another channel, and that channel is called REV Maistry. You need to go to that channel and subscribe. Also click on the notifications bell. It has most of the sermons that we have on the main channel, that channel has. And so the reason you do this, subscribe to both channels, and it's free. And click on the notifications so that if one doesn't broadcast, the other one will. And if for some reason both channels don't work, you can connect with us on Rumble. Do the same thing, subscribe, because every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. South African time, it will come on air. And if everything fails, you can contact the WhatsApp number on your screen so that we could help you to access what you have missed. Having said that, whenever we enter into a territory that the agents of darkness that control the world, it doesn't want us to delve into and wants to control the narrative, you'll find that the channel gets interfered with. So I want you to pray this through with us, and whichever person is reporting this and contributing to this being hampered, I ask you to think very carefully, because you are falling into the hands of a living God. And so I ask God's favor upon all the things that He shares through this platform. Let's go into some things that we're going to explore this morning. But I started last week in informing you that the World Economic Forum had its meeting in Davos, Switzerland, close to the IBS Bank, and all the cabal members are based in that. The leaders are based and operate from that platform there. Now, at that meeting, one of the main things on the agenda was that they expect that we're going to have another disease, one that is even more deadly than the one we already had. And so I gave you stuff last week. I'm not going to repeat, but I want you to see one of the reasons why I take extra precaution and use wisdom when directing my church congregation. There's a Fox News article that headlines, "The director of the health of this world calls for world treaty," and that word I'm not going to say, but it's there on your screen, "to prepare for this next disease that's coming." The leader of that health of the world it told the WEF that he hoped countries would reach an agreement. And this agreement I spoke to you about much earlier. It was in the pipeline in every country, this agreement when a disease comes out, by May, to address the common enemy. So I want you to listen to his own words, just in case there is a doubt as to whether he said this. Watch this.
And then the other key, in order to have better prepared and to address the disease X, is the agreement. The agreement can bring all the experience, all the challenges that we have faced, and all the solutions into one. And that agreement can help us to prepare for the future in a better way, because this is about a common enemy. And without a shared response, starting from the preparedness, we will face the same problem as. And deadline for the agreement is May 2024, and member states are negotiating. This is between countries, and I hope they will deliver this agreement by that time, on the deadline.
So he wants this treaty to be signed by all countries in the world by the end of May this year, 2024. And so what is this treaty all about? And I introduced you to it, so those of you that caught me late, perhaps you can go back and watch what the meaning of this treaty is. But in essence, whenever there's these people, the Health of the World Organization, when they decide and declare that there is a threat, that a disease is going to be very harmful, then they become the one world government for the world. In other words, the countries at the moment, and I shared with you what South Africa was up to about a year and a half ago, where they're signing sovereign rights, and America is doing it at the moment, where if something is declared by this organization of the world, the countries will have no more rights over their citizens insofar as health is concerned. So if those people say, don't let them go to work, shut the business down, the people must get a poke, all the rules that the head of the world, the health of this world, makes the decisions, when they make the decision, every citizen, the people you elected in your government no longer have control in a case of an emergency. That is what that treaty is all about. And so I want you to see the timing. You must always look beyond what you see. If he says the end of May, he wants all the countries, that for the sake of the safety of everybody in the world, all the countries must sign over their rights by the end of May in case of an emergency. And so why May? Because if something comes up immediately after that, that means that they take over the world insofar as that is concerned. Now I want you to think prophetically when I spoke back about the 4 horsemen and about the white horse and about that apocalypse is going to be heralded or founded on the principle of something to do with medicine, pharmakia, which is witchcraft. And so when you see the end day apocalypse, you're going to know that it's spearheaded by something to do with the health of the world and medication. I think it's quite obvious, further than what we've spoken, that when you look around the world, you will find that we are having extraordinary different weather patterns. It's unusual. Things like which we have never seen before. Animals are beginning to migrate before season and to places they never migrate before. Something is changing. And these weather patterns Jesus prophesied about, because they lead to unusual rainfall patterns, excessive hurricanes and floods and tornadoes. And those weather pattern changes cause pesticides and diseases that come upon the earth. And every single one of these things is because of the change in the climate. And this organization, that elites of the world, they want the world to believe that all these changes are due to climate change. Now, in the name of climate change, they have introduced to the world an advanced form of crop protection. You know, the food that we eat, it generally comes from the ground. Most of the food, grass, maize, all sorts of corn, everything that comes that is farmed. From the 80s, what they used to do, they used to spray herbicides using the aeroplane generally, and sometimes the farmers, smaller farmers, will use handguns. But they spray the entire crop, let's say of maize, and they spray everything with pesticides and herbicides and all sorts of toxins. And over the course of time, if you follow the trend, you will find that these pesticides did not only affect and kill the pests, the pestilences that affected the crop, but they got under the skin of the crop. And eventually people ate it in low doses, the toxins. And so if you look back at our history, from the time they started to use these products to kill the pesticides, you find that people started to get more sickly than before. Because my grandmother was very elderly, and her mother was even more elderly. She was alive while I was alive. And so they used to work from morning, no pains, no aches, no sickness, nothing came upon their bodies. Unlike us in our 20s and 30s and 40s, we're getting sicknesses like we've never seen before. But you might want to take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt, but I ask you to reconsider. The level of damage that the body has experienced over the last 40 years or so is more severe than before. And so, sometimes you think about the earlier times. I was fortunate to grow up in the 70s and 80s, and you even look nostalgically at the atmosphere. You look out out into just open air, you find the atmosphere was different. There was a stillness, there was a calm, there was a peace, there was a gentleness about the world, and it suddenly changed as the decades progressed. And so this spray used to be, now they evolved. They no longer use the toxins and the pesticides and herbicides sprayed over the crops. No. Now, in the name of climate change, now they have to say this, they have to give a reason why, so that the floods and the pestilences don't damage the crops. So what they do is, they now got a new design. They, how they made the pork? They use this CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing tool. They cut, let's say, the seed of the maize. They cut the maize seed and they plant the actual toxin, the DNA of the toxin, into the DNA of the plant, on the plant seed, so that the plant naturally now releases toxins so that the pesticides won't come and attack the plants. And they are, one of the owners of this major company that is forcing farmers all over the world to use their seeds to combat climate change so that the crop survives, to save the world now from hunger. So they force the countries, governments have been already bought, and so the governments are now forcing their farmers. And India had a problem where the farmers could not afford to buy those seeds, and the storms and were destroying their crop, and many farmers committed suicide. I mean, if you look at the record of numbers of farmers that committed suicide, it's astounding, it's unbelievable, because they were forced to buy the seed that they couldn't afford, and it was too costly for them. So anyway, this new genetic plant, this modified maize, has the toxin embedded in its DNA. Can you imagine when you have to consume a product that is laced with the poison that is meant to kill pesticides, so the pesticides don't eat the crop, but after it's ripe, it gets cut, ground, milled, comes into our cereal boxes, comes into our in our fruit, in our veggies. All these things, they got something now in it that has preserved it. And so you're going to be consuming, well, already we have consumed so much we don't even know. And for this reason, like when you eat Fritos, comes from corn. And in the back of the Fritos packet, if you take the time with Doritos, you will read there, genetically modified organisms are inside there. So they have to declare, and now in South Africa and many parts of the world, the governments are now making a new rule that they don't have to put labels. I shared with you this in a sermon before. They're passing laws all over that companies don't have to put their ingredients at the back. In the United States at the moment, the law is at the back of the product, if it says organic, the law says there is still possibility of it being 5% or 2% modified genetically. So they don't have to put genetically modified if it's like 5% or so. They can just say organic, and you and I are going to think that that is naturally grown. Now, the only way you can get away is if some product says 100% organic. If it doesn't say 100%, means that some parts of it will have modified things. And they only need to modify a small percentage for there to be the toxin in the fruit or the vegetable or whatever might be. Just so you know, this agenda of the Great Reset that has come in, that took over the spraying from the aeroplane and introduced this new method, new seeds, new enhanced bioengineered seeds now to plant in our fields. I want you to see a small video clip explaining some of the things I've just shared with you.
When it comes to agricultural applications, RNAi can be used as a form of genetic pesticide that can be built right into a plant's biology. For example, an insect pest feeds on a crop that deploys RNAi coded to stop the ability for that pest to digest food and process nutrients from the plant. As a result, the pest's growth or its ability to reproduce is slowed or halted, or the pest dies. Or a crop produces RNAi that changes a plant's chemistry, making that plant unattractive to a pest. Or the RNAi can block a plant's susceptibility to an herbicide, allowing the herbicide to only kill weeds on the farm. When we consider how society relies on crops for food, fuel, and fiber, it's easy to see why RNAi can be a valuable asset in crop improvement and a powerful tool against yield loss. However, just as when using other powerful tools, we have to make sure that the technology is safe. Keep in mind that genes are made up of millions and billions of pairs of nucleotides, and RNAi targets gene sequences around 21 to 25 nucleotides long. That's right, 21 nucleotides in a sequence out of billions in a gene. With those kinds of odds, the chances of the RNAi blocking other RNAs from producing totally unpredicted proteins is likely. One possible risk is that the RNAi molecule might silence the correct gene, but in the wrong organism. It turns out that the RNAi and the RNA don't have to be 100% identical for there to be silencing. For example, in addition to silencing part of a corn pest's digestive system, maybe an RNAi molecule would accidentally silence part of the digestive system of a lady beetle, or a honeybee, or a cow, or Cousin Mabel. These risks are not trivial, especially because they're different from those posed by most other types of pesticides that we're used to dealing with. Now, considering the unintentional turning off of unintended genetic functions of targeted and non-targeted organisms, and the huge complexity of biological and ecological systems on which all life depends, this could be a bit of a problem. Without more knowledge about how pesticidal RNAi works in pests and non-target organisms, it's difficult to predict how this technology might affect the environment.
Now, if you caught this, you did well. In this video clip, it says that this product that is now cut and pasted into the DNA of the plant affects the digestive system. What is that? The gut. What we spoke in detail about last week. They say that the gut of the human, it's not meant for human, it's meant to kill pesticides, but it's going to affect creatures that we didn't intend to kill, like the beetles. We're not intending to kill them. But when a human consumes it, it affects the digestive system, the gut. You know, I like to show you details so that it sticks with you, that you remember and you are able to never forget how the enemy plots and plans against the children of this world. This particular pesticide that they're cutting and pasting, one of them is called glyphosate. The most commonly used pesticide in the world is notably used in the production of dozens of modified crops. Environmental article tells us glyphosate is the most frequently used in agriculture to kill weeds in crops that have been genetically engineered to survive glyphosate use, particularly corn, soybeans, cotton. The herbicide has been classified as probable human carcinogen by the world's leading cancer authority. So this herbicide that is cut and pasted into soybeans and cotton and corn is carcinogenic, means it causes cancer. Now, another type of toxin that they put inside of plant seeds is called, in short, BT. BT crops are plants genetically engineered or modified to contain the endospore or crystal toxins of the bacterium. BT to be resistant to certain insect pests. In 1995, the EPA in the USA approved the commercial production and distribution of BT crops in cotton, corn, potato and tobacco. So the question is BT crop safe to mammals and humans. Now, clinical research has been done already. And the result of this clinical research tells us, headline world controversy. The results of the experiments conducted by researchers at the University of Caen, France, and supported by Gecko Foundation in Germany, showed that toxins produced in BT corn, MON 1810, can impact significantly the viability of human cells. So human cells can die if they are exposed to BT, but BT is one of the toxins put in potatoes and corn and so forth. Another article asks us to look at the evaluation of adverse events of the food that has been modified, and a systematic review of animal and human studies. The conclusion of this research article tells us serious adverse events of modified consumption include death, mortality, tumor or cancer, significantly low fertility, decreased learning and reaction abilities, and some organ abnormalities. Well, as I shared with you last week, and I pray that those of you that haven't watched that video, go back and watch it. If it affects the gut is the boss. The gut speaks to every organ in your body. It has access to. It speaks to your brain. And if the gut is effective, the digestive system, as we read earlier, then that will affect all other organs, and the organs will begin to become abnormal, dysfunction. And so, science articles are telling us this truth. Now, I don't mean to get too much into it. It's safe to say that you already know now what this world is exposing us to. And it reminds me once again to remind you about the scripture in Mark where Jesus was quoted as saying that even if you drink deadly poison, it shall not hurt you, if you belong to Him. And therefore, I urge you, for the safety of your children that are consuming these products, because we have no other choice. And when these products are being consumed, God's protection needs to be upon your home, your children's home. We are not living in normal times. So just sometimes to take extra precaution if you can, wherever you can. Sometimes when you look at fruit, you'll see the serial numbers on fruit, on the boxes or wherever, maybe on vegetables as well. Whenever you see a serial number beginning with 8, it means that product has been modified. Whenever you see something beginning with 9, that product has not been tampered with. So far as we know now, this is our protection. But there's going to come a time when you're going to have no labels to lead you. And this is when the protection of God needs to be even more upon you and those who you love. The last remark I want to make on this topic, an article tells us that glyphosate, this is a poison now, supposed to be just a poison for the pests, acts like a highly targeted antibiotic in the guts of animals and people. Unfortunately, it targets only our beneficial bacteria that's in the gut, the microbes that help with digestion, detoxification, hormonal balance, immune system and more. So if it affects the gut, so they have been targeting the human gut. And I mentioned to you, this is where your essence comes from. The prophetic message you get from God comes from that gut. It gives you insight, direction. And last week I told you, the gut knows things the brain still has to figure out. The eye still has to see. And the ear still has to hear. But the gut already knows. This is the house of your soul. It lives there to give you direction. And it gives subconscious direction to every organ. You know, I neglected to tell you the importance of this in this aspect. Because it controls metabolism, the gut talks to the organs and tells the organs, metabolism, as I shared with you, is the energy that the organs use to function. So the gut tells the organ, there's energy here, and this is what I want you to do with that energy. So the gut subconsciously speaks to every organ. Now, if there's an interruption with the good bacteria that's living there, that communication is hampered, which means that it cannot tell the heart, it cannot tell the liver, it cannot tell the pancreas what to do. So this pancreas is sitting with extra energy, and then when it doesn't get information, it turns that energy into fat. And that's why people start to get obese, fat, and they can't do anything about it, simply because the gut is the problem. It needs to have good bacteria. It needs to have a good balance of good and bad. So, have you noticed in recent times, after we came out of this past 3-year period, that all of us, we have little niggles, sniffles, issues that we never had like this before. Those days we used to have seasonal things. They come and they go. But body pains. And this has nothing to do with possession now. Possessed people also have that, but it's a different story. You know the symptoms when I share with you. But different little niggles, and the doctor wants to give you this, and the doctor wants to give you that. And have you not noticed that the level of irritation in a home, in families, with regarding to sickness and ailments has increased? Maybe you're not exposed to it, but as a pastor, seeing over so many people that report to me, this is wrong, that's wrong, pray for this, I am aware that it's spread across the spectrum. And so, just bear in mind that the target is the gut. That's what the elites are after, for that's where your conscience lives. As long as your conscience is dulled, it cannot give you intuition and prophetic knowledge about what they are up to or what's coming next. It needs to catch you out like by surprise. Now, the Bible speaks volumes about the gut. I wish I had time to read to you every passage from the Old and the New Testament about the gut. But we're going to just delve into a few if you don't mind. The book of Hebrews chapter 13 verse 9. Do not be carried about with various and strange doctrines. In other words, don't listen to various strange doctrines about how you need to get well and what you need to do. Listen to this. For Paul says it is good for the heart. It is good that the heart be established by grace, not with foods which have not profited those who have been occupied with them. I'm going to teach you something new about this passage. Oh, and also about that word heart. Now, I told you the gut is actually the heart that they were referring to. It's the inner man. Now, the Greek word for heart is kardian, and that's what the word cardiac came from. But cardiac or kardian in Greek actually appears multiple times. The online research tells me as the Greek word for heart. not the organ that pumps blood through our body. Cardia is the figurative core of your being. It is the seat and center of human life, emotion, volitional will. It is the causative source of one's psychological life in its various aspects. So, the heart is actually, if figuratively speaking, it's the gut. It's where everything centers around. So, beloved, what is Paul telling us? If you read that again, it is good that the gut be established by grace, not with foods which have not profited those who have been occupied. So, if you're going to correct the gut, you cannot do it by eating certain types of food only. You got to do it by the grace of God. What does grace mean? Grace means favor. You got to do it by the favor of God, by the mercies of God. God has got to do you a favor and sort that gut out. But God cannot act in your favor or do favors for you, have mercy on you, unless two reasons. One, you belong to His kingdom, and two, you listen to the spiritual advice He administers, so that if you adding the food to your mouth and you covered by His mercy, then if your gut gets healed, your entire body becomes healed. How? By grace. So you can eat as much of the right foods as possible. Paul says it wouldn't profit you. That gut can only be healed by the grace of God. So it's important, as I take you through this, I need you to follow the principles, spiritual principles of God. If you can do that, then God will protect this body. But moreover, if your gut is healed, your instinct becomes, your sixth sense, your conscience, your prophecy, your knowledge of things in the spiritual becomes heightened. So you can see what others may not be able to. But they want to dull that. So we need to ask God by His grace to heal us. Can we do that? Let's explore together. For Jesus tells us in John 38, he who believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. Out of his gut. And if you remember clearly, this thing happened literally when the soldier punched Jesus' gut, his side where the guts are. Water came pouring out. It is symbolic of God's grace flowing over you. Now, just so that we understand that the Bible knows what gut means, that the old writers, the ancient prophets, are familiar with the power of this gut. Let's read Job. When I looked for good. Now what is good? We learned good means functional. When I looked for function, then evil, dysfunction came upon me. And when I waited for light, there came darkness. My bowels boiled. Bowels is gut. Boiled. What is boiled? It means inflamed. Now, do you remember the Jews were cursed? I read this last week to you. With the inflammatory bowel disease. The inflammation of the bowels. Now, Job received a curse and he's talking about it. He says, I was looking to do good. I was looking to function. to pray, to keep my children safe. Then evil, dysfunction came upon my body. I got sick. And my bowels became inflamed. And he's talking about his sickness. So I'm sharing that with you because I need you to see that these ancient prophets, they knew exactly what we are talking about here today. Then Lamentations, and this is only in the King James Version. And I told you one of the most accurate translations somehow happens to be by a Freemason, King James. King James Version tells us in Lamentations, "Behold, O Lord, for I am in distress. My bowels are troubled. Mine heart is turned within me, for I have grievously rebelled." So, in this version, the prophet tells that his bowels, his gut is troubled. And why is his gut inflamed? Because he has grieved the Lord. So your gut microbiome becomes distorted and unbalanced simply when you start to allow evil, that means go against God, into your life. And he's complaining, the writer of Lamentations. Ezekiel in the King James Version once again, "And he said unto me, Son of man, cause thy belly to eat, and fill thy bowls with this roll that I give you. Then did I eat, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness." So God is talking to him and telling him he will nourish his bowels spiritually, so his spirit becomes nourished. Philippians in the New Testament, King James Version once again, "For God is my record, how greatly I long after you in the bowels of Jesus Christ." Now he is mentioning that in the heart of Jesus, in other words, Jesus' personality, inside there, I long to be with you. I long after you in the bowels of Jesus. So he's understanding that his bowels feels, his essence is in his bowels. So the essence of Christ is the bowels of Christ. Well, now because he's already gone into heaven, he's talking spiritually, obviously. So Colossians 3:12, another King James Version translation, "Put on therefore as the elect, holy and beloved, bowels of mercy." This is where your compassion is. "Kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness and patience." So the condition of your bowels, the balance of your bowels, the way it's balanced, it affects your entire persona. Who you are is a direct result of what's happening in your bowels. Oh man. Now, 2 Corinthians chapter 6. "You are not straitened in us, but ye are straitened in your own bowels." Another King James Version. Now, if you're not a scholar of theology, if you'll find it difficult to interpret this, but I'm going to help you. Perhaps other interpretations are the easier way, but I chose this one because I need you to see Paul's thinking. "You are not straitened in us, but you are straitened in your own bowels." So what he's saying, we are not controlling. He's speaking to the church in Corinth. He says, we are not controlling you by what we're telling you. You have to do this and you have to do that and you have to do this. You don't have to be restricted by us and what we say. Your own gut, your own bowels is the things that is the very thing, your own essence is the very thing that convicts you. So, whether you listen to us or not, your gut inside of you tells you what's right and what's wrong. And that is what straightens you. That's what controls you. So don't look at us and say, oh, you're giving us such hard rules, or whatever you say, we don't want to follow this. And Paul says, look, we are not the ones that are telling you. Look inside your gut, that gut will tell you. And if you go against it, you will offend that gut and you'll get sick. I want to take you back to Adam and Eve. Did you know that those two were not designed to handle stress? No, God didn't make, because everything in that garden was found. They were not designed to handle how to get food, because food was available to them. They didn't have to till the soil. No, they didn't. They didn't have to stress about tilling the soil, waiting for the season for that thing to come. No, because God said He only put that curse on them after they sinned. Before that, they were not designed to handle any stress. God's grace, His mercies, His favor was upon them. And so, they worried about nothing. They had nothing to worry about. How nice that world, that Garden of Eden. They wanted this fruit, they got taken. The only thing God told them is, don't eat from that. And anyway, when Satan came, he came as an angel of light, man. He came with good sounding words that will help Eve to become better than what she is. And so he convinced her, and he spoke words into her. And she consumed those words. And evil entered. And dysfunction came. Where did it come? Into her bowels. Her bowels became infected. And if you know about Adam, the book of Adam and Eve, the life of Adam and Eve, the two of them started to worry after that. They went and kicked out of the garden. Now they had to till the soil. Now they had to look for food. And at one time Adam said to his wife, listen, when we were there, we were eating angels' food. Now we are stuck eating food that animals were supposed to eat. And they were hungry. Now I'm going to read to you some of that so you can see for yourself the conversations that they were having. But before I do that, I just want to take time to tell you this. You must be careful about the words you ingest. They may be good sounding words, words that will look like it will benefit you, words that will improve the quality of your life, but you got to test everything that comes. Because it can be words of Satan dressed up to look nice and cozy. And I've been telling you about false teachers and false preachers for a very long time. And if you succumb to it by now, there's no words that I can say, except that perhaps it was not designed for you. So, let's read the life of Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve were expelled from paradise, they made for themselves a tent and spent 7 days mourning and lamenting in great sadness. But after 7 days they began to be hungry and sought food to eat and did not find any. Walking about, they searched for many days but did not find anything like they had in paradise. They only found what animals eat. Adam said to Eve, the Lord gave these things to animals and beasts to eat. Ours, however, was angelic food. Oh my. That tells us that there is a feast in heaven. That angels consume food, whatever type of that is. And so even when we go, there will be, because of the banquet, there's going to be a supper that we will have with the Lamb. And so, just so that you know that it's not like we're not going to enjoy the things, and it's going to be way better than what we have here on earth. Now, Adam for the first time they had to worry. They had to worry about food. They had to worry about this. And because of that constant worry, Adam became very sick, because the responsibility was on him. And the pressure was on him to provide. And it made him a very sickly man. Because of stress and pressure, your gut can become sickly, which affects everything else in your body. When I used to work at a hospital, I used to work night shift when I first started. And the busiest morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, for heart attacks was on a Monday morning. If you ask any hospital staff, they'll tell you. When you have a less stress upon your heart, upon your life, upon your gut, you have a healthy cardiovascular system and a healthy heart, relatively that is. But when you stress it, it causes damage. When you put stress upon yourself, it causes damage to your gut, which cannot speak to your heart, and therefore it clogs. And so, the stress that a person feels on a Monday morning after a good relaxing weekend, oh, I have to go back to work, I have to face that tyrant, that dragon at work, people at work don't like me. You know, you have that, like a fear inside that I don't want to go. I just don't feel like it. And that added pressure over a length of time, Monday mornings, lots of people crack. And that's because of stress. And so, I'm just laying this out for you so that whatever life God has preserved for you, that you will use it to its fullest. Now, going back to the life of Adam and Eve, Adam was relating the story to his son Seth before he died. And we'll take off from here. Immediately the Lord God grew angry with us and said to me, because you have forsaken my mandate and have not kept my word which I entrusted to you, I will bring upon your body 70 afflictions. You will be racked with pains from the top of your head, eyes, ears, to the bottom of your feet, and in every single member. This he counted as punishment fitting in suffering to the seriousness of our transgression concerning the trees. That's what they ate from. The Lord sent all these ills upon me and upon all our generations. Saying this to all his children, Adam was seized with great pains, and crying out with a great voice, he said, what shall I do? I who am unfortunate, being in so much pain. Now, in order for every single organ, it's written every single member of his body was affected. In order for every single body member, organ to be affected, it has to have affected the gut. Every organ cannot be affected unless the gut is infected. And so his gut, because of the sorrow and the stress, his gut was infected. And because his gut was infected, every organ began to suffer. And Adam, as the father of sin, is the one who is the mascot, who had every human possible infliction upon his body. If some humans have one problem, others have others. Adam, the poster boy for a damaged gut, had every sickness that man could have, he had it upon his body. He was in so much pain that Seth and Eve wanted to go back to the Garden of Eden and beg God to allow them to bring some sap from a tree, that they bring it back and put it on Adam and give him some relief. In so much pain was he. Let's leave that there for now. Signs of an unhealthy gut, I shared with you last week. Stress, too little sleep, lack of physical activity, and some others. So God is going to give you some instructions to get His grace and His favor. I dealt with stress in detail last week. We won't revisit it in detail this week. But in essence, I want to tell you that an unhealthy gut means an unhealthy soul, an unhealthy spirit, unhealthy emotions. You have no control over your actions and your thoughts. This is what an unhealthy means, that dysfunction has come in, evil has come in. So the things to avoid now is stress, we know, lack of sleep. You know, sometimes we have this bad habit. We want to stay awake because we have certain things that we want to accomplish. And it's important for you to know this. When your eye closes, you know, you feel like sleepy. Your gut is telling your eye, I need to reset. Shut that eye now. And so it's important, no matter what you got to do, when the eye tells you, when the gut tells the eye, time to close, it controls every organ, close it wherever possible. Not while you're driving or you have some very serious responsibility. I'm talking in general. This is your new formed habit that I need you to adhere to. Just some things that you can eat. I know Paul told us eating alone doesn't help, but it doesn't hurt for you to eat and follow what God is going to instruct you. So I'm just going to give you some help if you don't mind. 1 Timothy 5, Paul tells us what to do with the gut. He says, no longer drink only water, but use a little wine for your stomach's sake, that means gut's sake, and your frequent infirmities. You know, you're getting constantly sick, you need to heal your gut. To do that, have grapes. Fermented grapes is what they were using. Jesus drank it, and he drank it with his saints and everybody. So he's saying, Paul saying, have that, because what does grapes do? Grapes increases gut bacteria, the good ones. It reduces cholesterol and it protects the heart. There's a study that confirms these are the things that it does. There's some foods that you might be seeing on your screen now. Bananas and onions and garlic and all these sorts of things are things that you can supplement to help your gut. But the things that I'm sharing with you that you need to do is make sure you have enough sleep. Make sure that the stress part. You can't worry. Oh man. Imagine you have, I got sons, and sometimes we have to carry heavy bucket from here to there. And when you carry, now I'm getting older now, I'm not very old. I'm just saying I'm getting older. Now the bucket is heavy. Now I can't pick this bucket up and walk with it and tell Michael or Owen, help me to carry this bucket. But I'm carrying the bucket. If I don't leave it down for them to carry it, how are they going to carry it? It means that I'm going to carry this bucket, even though I'm complaining, I'm going to carry it from where I picked it up and take it to where it goes because I didn't want to leave it down. This is what worrying is. Carrying the burden that you're supposed to leave with Jesus to carry. And this is what Jesus, this is the grace of God. When you listen to the words of Jesus through the biblical scriptures, to say that, not about what you eat that can make you well. Don't listen to about all those doctrines of eating, as much as you listen to certain beneficial things. But more than that, you got to get the favor of God. And God is telling you, in order to get my favor, these are the little things I need you to do. So if you're going to carry the worry, I'm telling you, I am your burden bearer. When you have worked hard and you've done everything you can, physically that's possibly for you, then leave it at my feet and go away. I'll carry it for you. That's my grace. I'll have favor on you if you trust me. But I can't have favor on you if you don't. And if you leave it to me, your healing here will become instant. It will become a part of your life. You won't have gut infirmities. Jesus specifically tells, this is to get his favor and grace. Matthew 11, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden. In other words, you stressed, you worried, and I will give you rest. Because your gut and your soul and your spirit is linked, what is bad for your gut is bad for the soul. And one of the things that is spoken about is lack of physical activity. Now, there's medical reasons why certain people have lack of physical activity. But I'm talking about the character that is inside the gut, the person. Not because of an ailment, I'm talking about the person that's inside. The Bible uses a very strong term, and it's spoken as one of the deadly sins. It's called slothfulness. Now, lack of physical activity is a nice term, very euphemistic. But in actual terms, it's saying laziness. That's what it's supposed to be. And the Bible goes even more further and says slothfulness. Now, a slothful body is a lazy spirit which talks of a lazy character. Now, Proverbs 9 tells us, and this is once again King James, others say other words, laziness and so forth. Slothfulness casteth into a deep sleep, and an idle soul shall suffer hunger. Now, this affects the gut directly. People who procrastinate, put off things that need to be done now. I want you to put effort into it. Now, as much as you're slothful in your character about doing certain things yourself that can be done now, you put it off till later. You know, it starts with school. You know, when you're in school and you're studying, there's children who don't want to put effort because they're lazy. There's others who try very hard, but they just don't have an aptitude for it, which is okay, because maybe their gifts are something else. And some very successful people who didn't even finish school, they're doing well because they were not slothful. They just didn't have an aptitude for the books. But most of the children have aptitude, but they don't want to apply themselves. They rather laze around with their friends, drinking, smoking, clubbing, whatever, but they don't want to put effort into their lives. And that lazy spirit affects the gut. And from then on, this lazy spirit, it goes on into adult life, the slothfulness, and then they start to get ailments, and then they start to lead to poverty, and then more problems they have to worry about. But it starts with what? Slothfulness. Now, these are God's instructions. If you want to get His grace to heal this belly, you need to do the things that make sense. Proverbs 13 says, the soul of a lazy man desires but has nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. Now, what is this? Is maybe to the extreme when he says rich, but basically Solomon is telling us, you know, when you have a lazy, slothful man, it doesn't amount to anything, but when he looks at his brothers and his neighbors and all doing well, they get jealous. They get jealous inside, but they want something, they can't get it, they won't get it because they're slothful. So God is saying all His children cannot fall. You know, God was speaking about this slothfulness. Jesus Himself in the book of Matthew, when He spoke about the servants who got talents. One He gave certain amount, and there's one He gave one. And the Lord said to the one that He gave one that didn't amount to anything, He says, thou wicked and slothful servant. Other versions say, lazy servant. Matthew, the King James Version says, slothful servant. And He cast that slothful servant into outer darkness, and he was shunned. There's, you know, this attitude physically, it causes spiritual laziness also. You know, I know this as a fact as a pastor. There's people who really don't amount to anything. They really struggle. They don't have, because you see, in earlier life they didn't put effort, so now they're in that place. But you can turn it around and you can get the favor of God if you start to listen. You know, they want a spiritual blessing, but they don't want to put effort in it. So if I say, listen to my sermons, I don't want to listen to you. Inside themselves, they'll say, yeah, in their head. They'll say, okay, pastor. But in their own time, they have no interest in ever watching any sermons. Some of them watch halfway or quarter way and then just give it up. I tell them, put an effort into your spiritual life. No, but they're too lazy. They don't want to read the book that I tell them. If you want deliverance, no, pastor, you must arrange a meeting for us. Just let us lay hands on us. There's no effort. They don't want to invest in themselves. It's a slothful spirit. This is why certain wolves, certain false prophets, especially during this time of the month in January and so on, they know the people looking for answers. They take advantage of the desperateness nature of people. And they start to have crusades and prayer meetings and all sorts of things in the name of solving them. But when the people come, they want to trap them there, and obviously for obvious reasons. And they use this instant healing thing where you don't have to, you can be slothful, you can be of a lazy spirit, but the blessing of God is yours. And you can get a healing without the effort. You can get money just by planting a seed. You don't have to get His favor or grace by doing what He asks you to do, by rejecting dysfunctional words and things that don't make sense. You don't have to, you can just be anyhow you want. Just come to the altar and I'll spit on you some anointed juice from my mouth. The spit I have is anointed juice. That's what lots of them, I'm joking, want you to believe. Handkerchiefs are thrown. Holy water is given. These are for slothful people. This kind of thing is for slothful people. The people with the real, those kind of people will not be comfortable in my ministry. That's why lots of them went to it, because they want to be spoon fed. One must lay hand and solve their problem. No, you won't find them. But the diligent ones, the smart ones, the ones who are not slothful, the ones who put effort into their lives, who are prepared to not sit down. Whatever it takes, they're prepared to do it. Those are the ones you'll find under my care. And I am proud of you because you have done well. So, tap on your back to yourself. I might be preaching to the choir, but for those that are sitting on the fences and you want to change your character, this is the time to do it. The last thing that we'll talk about is fasting. Or the last two things. I'll quickly rush through it if you don't mind. One is fasting, and we're doing that. Now, everyone knows their own body. How you want to fast. Don't go overdo it because it can hurt you. There's whatever you want to do that you feel led to, that's what you must do. And if you can't manage, stop it. Because the quality of things that we eat after we break fast is not the same as in Jesus' time or even earlier in our time. So, work yourself out in your way. Half a day, even couple of hours a day. But the main thing is, make the other adjustments of changing your character. Especially during this fast. The last thing I want to help you with is, God asks us to rest on the seventh day. Now, it's not a law. It's a suggestion at the moment. It's a suggestion to help your gut health reset. They did a study in America, in one of the small states. And the article of the US National Institute of Aging, on aging, they did a research. And the article tells us that I don't want to read it to you, but they tested, you can see it on your screen, they looked at the longevity, how long people lived and how healthy people were in a certain area of the United States. And they found that the secrets of longevity from populations that had high rates of centennial, 100-year-olds, few deadly diseases and more healthy years of life. Among them were Seventh-day Adventists in this Californian suburb. The fact that this Seventh-day Adventists adhere to the seventh day, which is their Saturday, you mustn't do any work. There's more pressure on you. Not for the lazy people, they don't do work any day. I'm talking about those that work hard, those that put effort in. You need to take that one day off. Let's not make it a hard and fast rule as if it's a law, but in general, to reset your gut health, you need to build a habit of taking that one day just to unwind, to do fun things that you like, things that will help you to rejuvenate, and this God advised us, and even Jesus, he did work on the seventh day. So I don't want to make it a hard and fast rule, but these are the things that we have to do if we listen to his wisdom to reset the gut that we have. The last thing, I'll remind you what we did last week. A merry heart, a merry gut. In your home, I want you to try this for this week, especially during this fasting period. I want you to not just make yourself happy, but go the extra mile to make the life of people that are around you as happy and comfortable as you can. Do things you didn't do for them. Iron your wife's clothes. Make a cup of tea just for the days. Put a smile on their face. Laugh, joke, change your stiffness. I want that you need to become loose and favorable to the people around you. They mustn't feel they have to walk on the eggshells around you. For this fasting period, change who you become to them. And you'll find that merry heart in them will change who you are, and your entire atmosphere inside that home will be brand new. So with that wisdom of God, I want to leave you this morning with everything. If you need to go back and listen, I encourage you to do that. Let me pray with you this morning so that we can have God's favor upon us. Lord Jesus, as your children bow in your presence, let your grace favor them. In this world where we are being targeted, our conscience is being targeted, our spirits are being targeted that live inside a holy place in us. I pray, Lord, that you will manifest your glory upon each saint that prays to you. Let your children draw close to you this fasting period, and let the self diminish day by day. Cover us all in your precious blood. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. God bless you, beloved. Have yourself the most beautiful week ever. Happy families, all of you. In Jesus' name, amen.